Students, today we will talk about hypothesis testing. Till the last session, we did talk about estimation of parameters, and when we use the word estimation of parameter, it does indicate that we are interested in confidence interval or constructing a confidence interval for population parameters. We have dealt with the estimation of mu, estimation of p, and estimation of sigma square or sigma in case of one population parameters. To estimate mu, we have used two approaches. Either Z we have used to construct 1 minus alpha percent confidence interval for population mean mu, or we have used T under some conditions. Population proportion we have estimated with Z, and population variance or standard deviation we have estimated by using chi-square distribution. If we talk about the difference between two population mean estimation, we have used Z distribution, we have used pool T after assessing the relationship between the two population variances. If population variances are found equal, then we have used pool T approach. And non-pool T approach we have used as well for estimating the difference between two population means when we have found that the two population variances are not equal or different. The difference between two proportions we have estimated using Z distribution, and the ratio of two population variances or standard deviation of two population variances we have estimated with the help of F distribution. As far as comparison between estimation of parameters and hypothesis testing is concerned, in estimation we have no knowledge about the population parameter or the real or actual value of population parameter, whether it is mu, whether it is p, or it is sigma square or sigma. What we do, with the help of drawing a representative sample from population, we try to estimate the two limits within which that particular population lies or may lie on the basis of 1 minus alpha percent CR. So over there we had no knowledge, but as far as hypothesis testing is concerned, in hypothesis testing procedure we are given certain value for population mean mu for a scenario, certain value for population proportion P, and certain value for population variance or standard deviation sigma square or sigma. We draw again a sample, representative sample from the population, and then we check whether the given claim or the hypothesis or hypothesized value for the mean, for the proportion, for the variance, whether our data supports that value or not. So that's the difference between the estimation of parameter and hypothesis. In estimation, again I am repeating that we have no knowledge about the actual value of population parameter. We try to estimate that by using the concept of 1 minus alpha percent confidence interval. Whereas in hypothesis testing procedure, we are given a particular value and we check on the basis of collected data from the population that should be representative. Based upon that data, we try to find out whether the given argument regarding mean, proportion, or variance can be validated by the data or not, whether data supports that hypothesis or not. So as far as hypothesis testing is concerned, we have two different hypotheses that we construct. The hypothesis that we want to test, we call it alternative hypothesis, We indicate it either using H1 notation or HA. This we call alternative hypothesis, and this is the statement or the hypothesis that we are supposed to test or we are asked to test. We have to always work with the alternative or another scenario that is exactly a contradiction or a counter argument as compared to alternative hypothesis that we are asked to test. And we, for that reason, we create another hypothesis or we define another hypothesis that we indicate with H naught, and this we call the null hypothesis. So in every scenario or any given situation, we are supposed to construct these two hypotheses. Alternate hypothesis tells us about the argument to be tested or the claim to be tested, whereas null hypothesis we define on our own as a contradiction or a counter argument as far as alternative hypothesis is concerned. So this is how we do it. And now what I'm doing, I'm selecting 3 exercises so that we try to understand how do we construct a specific alternative hypothesis and the null hypothesis after reading the given piece of information that we are provided in a question. So this is what I am opening an exercise from the book. Just before question number 9.3, we are asked to develop 3 things or to answer 3 parts. In part A, we are asked to determine the null hypothesis. In part B, determine the alternative hypothesis, and then we are asked to classify the hypothesis test as a two-tailed, a left-tailed, or a right-tailed test in part C. So now let's start first with question number 9.3. The data is very older, so nothing to worry about. We need to just uh, try to understand, try to learn that how do we state these 3 things or how do we answer the questions asked in 3 parts. According to the Census Bureau publication construction reports, the mean expenditure per residential property owner for maintenance and repairs in 1983 was $280. Suppose we want to perform a hypothesis test to decide whether last year's mean expenditure has increased over the 1983 mean of $280. So over here the word increased we are given in the question. So let's start talking about what are the possibilities as far as the word given in the question are concerned, and how do we decide whether we need to go for a right tail or a left tail or a two tail. So there are few words as an example I'm quoting over here: increase, higher, greater, exceeds. In all these cases, we have to go for a right tail test, because higher means some a value that is greater than the predefined value or the borderline value. Higher means the same thing, greater means the same thing, exceeds means the same thing. So right tail test we call it, and greater than sign we use in alternate hypothesis. Now let's talk about the antonyms of these words. Increase, the antonym of increase is decrease. Higher is lower or less, lower than or less than. Greater gives less as antonym, and exceeds gives us deficient. So in that case, when we are given these words in the question, we identify that test as a left-tailed test. And in that case, we indicate less than sign in alternative hypothesis. Similarly, if the word differ, changed, and indifferent are given, then we indicate this test as a two-tailed test. Now, referring the question that is 9.3. So, in question number 9.3, we are asked to state null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, and the nature of the test. What I am doing deliberately to make you understand the concept regarding the null hypothesis, I am deliberately stating alternative hypothesis first. Alternative hypothesis that we are asked to test is mean, which is population mean definitely. So we need to state it as mu is greater than $280. Now, as a contradiction, we need to indicate the null hypothesis as either less than or equal to, because both the signs are indicating contradictory statement to the one we have stated in alternative hypothesis. Now, what if I ask you that if something is not greater than, then it may not be directly reaching at the less than zone. First, it will reach equality sign. So if something is instead of greater than, it becomes equal to something. So even at that position or at that stage, the alternative hypothesis will be challenged, because for alternative hypothesis to be supported by the data, this should be strictly greater than $280. But if a value of mean becomes 280, exactly equal to 280, that's the moment at which the alternative hypothesis or the argument stated in alternative hypothesis will be challenged. So it is equally acceptable if instead of stating or quoting null hypothesis with less than sign and equal to sign along with that, it is always better to state it as mu equals to $80. Now, since we are using greater than sign in the alternative hypothesis, therefore this is indicated as a right tailed test. So this is how we answer question number 9.3 part A, B and C. Now moving to question number 9.2, 9.4. The World Almanac 1985 reports that the mean travel time to work in 1980 for all South Dakota residents was 13 minutes. A transportation official wants to use a sample of this year's travel times for South Dakota residents to decide whether the mean travel time to work for all South Dakota residents has changed from the 1980 mean of 13 minutes. Over here, the word changed is mentioned. And change means we are not sure for that change or the nature of change, whether it has become less than that or greater than that. Therefore, we give room in alternative hypothesis to not equal to sign. So this is how we can state. And now you will be comfortable with the fact if I state the null hypothesis directly with equality sign and then 13 minutes, because equality sign is the only contradiction or the counter argument, which is for, not equal to, or changed word, different word, or indifferent word if we are given in the question, as I mentioned earlier. So this is the answer to part A, mu equals 30 minutes. This is the answer to part B, mu equals not equals 13 minutes. And since we are using not equal to sign, then we call it a two-tailed test. Now moving to question number 9.5. So in question number 9.5, the Food and Nutrition Board of the National Academy of Sciences states that the recommended daily allowance RDA of iron for adult females under the age of 51 is 18 milligrams. A hypothesis test is to be performed to decide whether adult females under the age of 51 are on the average getting less than the RDA of 18 milligrams of iron. So it is less than that is given clearly in the question. So how do we state the null hypothesis, the alternative hypothesis, and how do we decide the nature of the test depending upon the sign that we are using in alternative hypothesis? So H naught is mu equals 18 milligrams. In part B, H1 should be mu is stated as, or should be stated as, less than 18 milligram, because less than is the word that we are given in the question right there. Then in part C, should be indicated as a left tail test because less than sign has been used in the alternative hypothesis as per the claim given in the question that is to be tested. So this is how we state H naught, H1, and this is how we decide the nature of the test. That's all from this session.